Okay, so every day I'm starting to really learn to engage with myself. I'm beginning to learn to be me instead of perform. There's three words that two nots and one do that I've thought of. And they're really significant. So the first one is performance. I am really learning to not perform for others. I didn't realize how deeply I perform for the world, and now it's finally happening where I know what it feels like. I would try so hard to not perform. Like again and again and again, I would try so hard to just be myself, but I could never actually do it because I didn't really know how to be myself without I just without it's almost like I was in this automated program and I couldn't undo it. I had to perform. I didn't realize that I was performing for others. I thought that I was like if I was like I'm gonna be myself, I would end up doing things that even I don't like. Like I would not like myself. And so I thought I can't be myself because I don't like myself. But now I'm getting to a point where I finally see who I am, and I can I can either attach myself to what I like or distance myself from what I don't like. Before, I would just be myself and I would be the good and the bad, and I wouldn't separate myself from the bad. I would just not learn. I would just constantly go through life being either too angry or too immature, whatever it was that I didn't like, and I couldn't undo that programming. So being myself, I learned to repress it because I didn't like myself. And when I was in public or at work or something, I couldn't be myself because I didn't like myself. I would be ashamed of who I was. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't detach myself from that because I was just so deeply programmed to be that way. And now I realize because I'm more transparent to myself now. I'm able to stop and view myself and say, okay, I don't approve of doing that. And because I don't approve of doing that, instead of just repressing it, pretending like it didn't happen, moving on, doing it again, I am now reflecting on it. I look at it and I say, I don't like that. I don't want to do that again. And I'll remember that the next day, and then the next day, and the next day. And so, like, I download new knowledge and actually grow. And it's amazing. I haven't been able to do that. And a lot of that comes from uh, drugs and alcohol. So when we hit college, a lot of us will just start drinking. There are a few of us that don't, and some of us wait a couple years and think, oh, I'm not going to do it, and then they end up doing it, and then they fall into the trap too. But when you finally stop doing those things, drinking and smoking or Adderall or whatever it is that you do that's bad, because it is all bad. It fucks your mind up. If you learn to not do those things and just deal with the pain and the boredom of being human, you can actually focus your energy not on fun things. Ooh, this is fun, I feel good. You can actually focus it on the things that matter, like bettering yourself. And it's so hard to try to explain this to someone. You have to just do it. You have to get to a point, either A, where you had really, really experienced good parents, and they taught you from a young age because they learned before they had kids how to do this. A lot of the time parents will not learn how to do this and then have kids, and then their trauma that they haven't dealt with passes on to the children. So the children grow, move out, and they do the same thing, and their parents just start learning the moment that kid moves out, because now the parents don't have to think about raising their kids anymore, and the stress is kind of gone, and they get bored, and anyway, so they finally learn. But at this point, you're now just the beginning of your adulthood, and you don't know how to undo this trauma. So you go through another 10 years of just being traumatized. And so here's the deal. If you learn to just deal with the pain and deal with the boredom and not repress it with drugs and alcohol or or whatever it is that you repress it with. Usually it's those two things. But if you finally learn to just deal with the boredom and deal with the pain, just let it happen, observe it, be a spectator. Don't identify with it. Don't think, oh, I feel like shit, I am shit, and then you do shitty things. No, you feel like shit, but you know willfully that that isn't you, that's just happening to you. And so when you let it happen to you and you don't react to it, you now get to analyze it and say, okay, how can I change this? And you actually start thinking rationally. And you get to grow. And this is the most pinnacle point of any adult's life, is when you finally realize this. Because when you realize this, it gives you so much power. You can literally start to unprogram and reprogram your mind. You get to change who you are. Instead of complaining about the evil in the world, or the assholes in the world, or whoever it is that you don't approve of in the world, or maybe you're mad at your parents for not doing good enough, and all these things, and blame, and pointing all of the power outside of you into them, saying it's their fault, the world sucks because of them, and you just turn it around and take responsibility, that doesn't mean to blame yourself and then get really depressed. It just means that you give yourself power to change it. If you say, no, it's me, I am to blame, or I'm responsible, you finally, as ironic as it is, now you have power. Now you can change the world. You could be the change, as they say, rather than tell people to change. You can be changed. And once you actually start to grow and change, you no longer care about what all these other people are doing, because you realize that it was never about them to begin with. And that goes hand in hand with the whole performing for others. You get so resentful of the external world when you can't control your mind, when you can't unprogram yourself and unwind the trauma and reprogram yourself into a new person. You start to just blame people. You're like, it's your fault, it's their fault, they suck, and then you just start to what they call spiral. You get all tangled up because you're powerless. But the minute that you finally realize that you don't have to cure your boredom or your pain with drugs, alcohol, or any external sources of blaming others, or maybe violence, whatever it is that you're doing to repress that trauma, you finally stop doing it, you can now grow. And when you grow, you become so powerful. It's amazing. Like, every day that I go through life sober, and whether it be a good or a bad day, doesn't matter anymore to me. It doesn't. If it's a good day, hell yeah. If it's a bad day, okay. Like, it just you get through it. You're going to wake up tomorrow, and it's going to be a new day. I finally understand what all these people were saying all along about tomorrow's another day. Because it is. And every day that you remain sober, you're allowing yourself to level up. People that defend either smoking weed, or they defend their alcoholism by saying, oh, they're not really alcoholic, blah, blah, blah. They're just their own worst enemy. And waking up hungover, or needing a smoke, or whatever it is that's your vice, that is destroying you. It is causing you to not emotionally mature. And when you don't emotionally mature, you cannot unprogram the trauma. You're going to sit with that trauma for the rest of your life until you finally start feeling it. When you can finally just say, I have had enough of suppressing this shit. And you can finally just feel it and let it happen to you without reacting to it. And your response is to not react to it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to go out into the world and respond in all these creative ways and read books and like go get doctors help, and you don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is sit and let it happen to you, and that pain, that boredom, that angst will pass. It always will pass. And the only people that spiral into oblivion or really, really bad behaviors are the ones that react to it, that identify with that feeling. They go, oh, that feeling is me. Ugh. And then they go to a doctor and get diagnosed as depressed, or diagnosed as personality disorder or borderline or anxiety or whatever it is, if you just don't and you let it happen to you without letting your physical body act out a reaction to it, you will cure yourself piece by piece. And bad days become so much more manageable. You can actually, because when you're having a bad day, you start to, because now you've been doing it for however long and you're starting to get good at it, you start realizing that these bad days are actually the best days, because sitting in that pain and sitting in that it's like laying in an ice bath. You know how people will lay in ice baths or take cold showers in the morning, and by like week 3 or whatever it is, I don't do that, but week 3 you now can not only have you have a higher pain tolerance, and getting in a cold shower is nothing to you. You'll turn on that cold shower and you're chilling. Your heart rate doesn't fluctuate, your blood pressure doesn't rise. You will stay regulated. It's the same thing, except instead of it being physically cold water, it's more like you're boiling blood, or your internal rather than your external. And whatever happens out will happen in, and whatever happens in will happen out. You have to be able to stabilize this relationship of the internal and the external world. If you don't learn to stabilize and find a bridge between them, you will be at the mercy of this world. The world's circumstance will determine who you are. And so anything that happens to you will change you. So if something bad happens to you, now you're bad. Now you're a bad person. If something good happens to you, oh, now you're a good person. And that is obnoxious. When I meet people who have a good day coming up, or like their day's gonna be good, or they're excited for something, and they're super happy and they're just like jolly running around, usually they're like the moodiest person ever. I can't stand those people. Not because I'm jealous that they're happy, not because of that, but I can see the disingenuine energy that's oozing off of them. I know that this happiness is not going to last. The minute that something bad occurs, or the minute that life gets a little tougher, or something doesn't go their way, they're going to get all mad and be a negative energy. And it's unstable. And it's infectious and not good. And it's immature. It's juvenile. It shows people like that, typically, from my experience, are either alcoholics or on drugs. It's two of the most popular ones of vices, of external instant gratifications. If you learn to ignore instant gratifications and just dwell in the boredom and pain, you will level up. And when you level up, you become a brand new person. You become a creator instead of a recreator. So when the world occurs to you, it bounces off of you, just like Neo from the Matrix. Those bullets, they just bounce off of you, or you stop them, whatever it is that you want to imagine. Doesn't affect you anymore. You are now the creator, essentially the god of your life, because now you determine. You become the magnet rather than the world changing you. You become the changer. A recreator is a copycat, and that is essentially the devil. The devil copies God because that's all he can do. That's what the Bible always talks about, is saying the devil copies God. He tries to do his own version of what God does because he's a recreator, which means he's a reactor. Someone that reacts to things. But if you are a creator, not a recreator, you are a god. So it's very important to realize that if you don't instantly gratify yourself and you essentially fast, that's what fasting is. That's why people fast. People think it's, I have to starve myself. That's it. Like, that's not what fasting is. Fasting means to zen out and stop letting the world control you. You take power back into your hands. Fasting can be anything. If your vice is doing Adderall or smoking weed or drinking booze, because those are huge in this society, and you say, no, I'm going to stop that. That's a fast. That fast will bring you closer to God, because now you have creative power over your own life. And the longer I stay sober, the more this becomes obvious. And it's just beautiful. It's just so true, and I need more people in this world to see this, because I spend too much time with people that I love that aren't sober. They don't realize how important it is to remain vigilant in sobriety. The moment that you get drunk this night, you're losing. You don't need to do that stuff. Not even ever. That's the crazy thing. That stuff is poison for the body and for the mind, for the internal and for the external. So, yeah, this was the message. I just really wanted to emphasize the power that we have if we stop giving power to our external world and taking things out of it and putting it into us to make us more powerful or more confident. Don't do it. You have it all within you. So yeah, that's pretty much the message. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate if you subscribe, because I really enjoy making these videos and I'm going to continue to do it. So if you could hit the like button and subscribe, I will really appreciate it.